Hey everyone, it's me HawkeyeG and I'm back with another video. Today's video is 5 quick campaign tips for the Ice Court Realm of Chaos campaign in Total War Warhammer 3. I've made a lot of longer videos, but it does seem that people would enjoy something shorter and more straightforward, so here we are. The idea with this one is to just hit a lot of the key points of this campaign so you know what to look for or focus on without getting too deep into the details. Kislev is no longer a recommended starting faction, but it still seems to be a pretty popular choice for people's first playthrough, and it's definitely a challenging one, so it's worth talking about and hitting some of these key points before you get to them in your own campaign. As always, if you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe, and leave your own tips and tricks or ask any questions in the comment section below. With that being said, let's get started. So the first tip is to build churches everywhere. It's certainly more of an obvious tip, but when you have Eastern Oblast, and especially once we get expanded into Duhklys Forest, you'll want to get as many churches as you can comfortably. You'll need to do this relatively early on in order to get ahead in the supporters race, as it comes pretty close, especially if you want to get that first objective. And not to mention that getting some upgraded churches is going to give you additional patriarchs for the casualty replenishment, which should help keep you on a good pace in the early stages of the campaign. Even with just your capital and Eastern Oblast, however, you can definitely get enough supporters for that first goal if you focus on it. Now, tip number 2 is to avoid the trap of fighting Sylvania or the Empire. Be friends with the Empire instead, and don't try to reach too far south early on. For a lot of people, I'm sure this is obvious, but for some, it looks like tempting territory and safe lands to take. Sometimes in Warhammer 2, it's a good idea to take out, some sort of friendly territory when you can make better use of it yourself. However, you just are going to have too many other priorities to deal with in this campaign, and if you spend your time fighting the Empire for a territory, or even going further south for the vampires, you might end up running out of time, and the other problems you'll face are just going to pile on, right? I think it's more important to take over Duhklys Forest and attempting to wipe out the Skaven at Hell Pit instead. You'll get these choke points established early on and secured, takes a lot of pressure off you, and allows you to react to later problems more effectively. Now, I do think if you have some downtime, it could be worth it, and if we look here, of course, theoretically we have 2 provinces that we could get for ourselves. But that is situational. Sometimes the vampires don't take all of this successfully, and in general, by the time you get down here and start doing something, somebody else is going to come and steal one of these settlements from you anyway, and maybe if you're going to skip the first or second rift cycle, you're going to find yourself with the free time to run down here and do this, but in general, I wouldn't recommend it, because even though it looks like this is going to be easy to secure, we're going to end up building a lot of other problems very quickly in this campaign. Now, tip number 3 is going to be the options regarding Duhklys Forest, right? The question is whether you want to just sit at this choke point and hold it forever, or if you want to go and wipe out the Bear Sonelings up in the northeast. This one's a little bit more complicated. It has to do with the bonus potential that the AI gets when they're shrouded. If you don't know what that means, search for Venris SFO and his video on AI cheats in Warhammer 3. Basically, the AI strength and bonuses scale off your own power level, and they also get an additional bonus when they're undiscovered by you. In this situation, you have 2 options. You take Duhklys Forest, and you create an effective choke point here. It's easy to hold, even with just a single army. It's low investment in money and effort. Norska keeps attacking you, and you get devotion from fighting them. But the downside is this will leave Nurgle and Tzeentch in the north shrouded from you, so they'll become stronger faster. The second option is to push forward and wipe out the Norska and take their settlements. Now, I don't think you necessarily have to hold their settlements, but just eliminating them from the game eliminates a threat from you. Taking these settlements gives you that vision on the water so you can reveal Nurgle temporarily. You could opt to take these and build walls in them, or maybe even gift them to the dwarves to give them a little bit more territory and strength. But generally, this is pretty far removed from your territory. It might invite agitators from the east. So the main idea here is just to trade the Bear Sonelings capital for the water vision and then pull back to the choke point anyway. But those, I think, are some of the options for how to deal with this situation here. Now, tip number 4, this is a pretty short and sweet one. Recruit Ice Guards. Ice Guards are something you do not want to overlook if at all possible, because you can get them from this unique building, and you can get both variants at T4, in addition to upkeep reduction for them. It's very strong. In addition, you can get them in Katarine's army, and she will also have the 50% upkeep reduction for them. So at the end of the day, Ice Guard can actually be cheaper than regular Kossars. Very important. Going to make that army very strong for her. You don't want to miss it. Now our tip number 5 is going to be establishing choke points and defenses. You know, we talked about Norska and the possibility of reaching out to wipe them out and taking those territories, but it's much more important to establish a choke point at this mountain pass in the northeast, another choke point here just north of Hell Pit, and then the problem is we have to build defenses across Troll County because it's not quite as easy as, you know, we've got a choke point here in the northwest, but they can still land on the beach, they can flank you, or even run down to Erengrad. So making sure to recognize where you're vulnerable on the west coast and building defenses, and then recognizing where you can create really easy choke points so that you don't have to have as many armies. It's a really important part of this campaign. You'll see the Great Orthodoxy expand outwards, and when you confederate them, you'll get that land. It might even be worth it for you to push to the coast to kind of have buffer territories, but the most important thing is identifying where these choke points are and being able to hold at those parts of your territory for the rest of the campaign. Now, one bonus tip here is don't forget about Skrag. He will inevitably do severe damage to the Empire and start wiping them out one by one, and you really don't want him invading your lands while you're focused on holding off waves from the north. It's worth making the effort to assist the Empire in wiping him out, whether that is providing them with funding, some of their stronger factions yourself, or just committing an army there to take fights on. As you can see here, Skrag will definitely run right through their territory in order to get to yours as well. So a good strategy for maintaining the balance between the Empires and the Ogres is just to keep killing off his armies and letting them do the rest of letting the Empire do the rest of the work. Now with that being said, I've covered everything I wanted to for this quick campaign guide. If you'd like to know more about the campaign and get some more in-depth tips, I have a more complete Kislev campaign guide, which I will link to you in the video and the description. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something useful for it. It's a tough campaign for people just starting the game, as it can be really relentless as far as the various enemies you're exposed to and attack to, and like I said earlier, the kinds of problems that you have to deal with tend to pile on very quickly and spiral out of control. But once you understand more of their mechanics like supporters, devotion, and invocations, it becomes easier to manage. It's also a campaign where objective prioritization is important. It's easy to get distracted by something irrelevant or get sidetracked and kind of fall behind, more or less forever. Now, of course, if you enjoyed the video, please remember to like and subscribe. And if you have any additional questions, or if you've got some tips of your own, leave them in the comments section down below. Other than that, thank you for watching, have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.